Her voice had cut through the patter of rain on my windshield like a lifeline tossed into a storm, low and steady with that faint Spanish lilt that made even authority sound like a secret. I hesitated, my hands trembling as I fumbled for my rental papers, the weight of being a lone American traveler in a foreign country crashing down harder than the thunder rumbling in the distance. "Ma'am, it's not safe to drive in this weather," she added, her silhouette tall and unyielding against the flashing lights. "Please. I'll get you to shelter." I don't know why I trusted her. Maybe it was the exhaustion from 3 weeks of solo backpacking, chasing ghosts of my failed life back in Brooklyn, or the way her eyes, visible now under the brim of her cap, held no malice, just a quiet insistence that felt like mercy. I grabbed my backpack, locked the Fiat, and slid into the passenger seat of her patrol cruiser, the vinyl creaking under me like a confession. The door shut with a finality that echoed in my chest, sealing out the storm and sealing in whatever this night was about to become. She was Audrey Ruiz, she told me as she pulled onto the road, her profile sharp against the dashboard glow, high cheekbones, a jawline that could cut glass, and lips pressed into a line that spoke of too many long shifts. 32, born in Seville but stationed in this sleepy coastal stretch for the past 5 years, chasing down petty thieves and lost tourists like me. "Brooklyn Hayes," I replied, my voice smaller than I intended, offering my hand across the console. Her grip was firm, calloused from years of handling gear and lives, and for a split second, our eyes locked in the dim light, a spark jumping like static. The drive wound through olive groves bent low by the wind, the wipers slapping rhythmically as she navigated the curves with the ease of someone who knew every pothole by heart. We didn't talk much at first, the radio crackled with dispatch calls in rapid Spanish, and I strained to catch fragments, my high school Duolingo failing me spectacularly. But then she asked about the tattoo peeking from under my sleeve, a delicate outline of the Brooklyn Bridge, inked on a whim after my last breakup. "Homesick?" she ventured, glancing over with a half-smile that softened the edges of her uniform. "Something like that," I said, tracing the ink with my thumb. "Ran away from a mess in New York. Thought Spain would fix it. Wine, sunsets, that whole eat pray love bullshit." She laughed, a rich sound that filled the car and chased away the chill seeping through the vents. By the time we pulled up to a modest inn on the outskirts of town, a whitewashed building with terracotta tiles and a flickering sign that read Posada del Mar, the rain had eased to a drizzle, and the knot in my stomach had loosened just a fraction. She walked me to the door, her boots splashing in puddles, and as the innkeeper handed over a key with a sleepy nod, Audrey lingered. "Get some rest, Brooklyn. I'll check on your car in the morning." Our hands brushed again as she passed me a business card, her name embossed in crisp black, along with a number scrawled in pen below. "For emergencies," she said, but her eyes said something else entirely. That night, I lay awake in the narrow bed, the sea whispering through the open window, replaying the pullover like a fever dream. Who was this woman who turned a routine stop into a rescue? And why did her voice echo in my head like a song I couldn't shake? Little did I know, that midnight shift was just the beginning of a story that would unravel us both, thread by fragile thread. The next morning dawned crisp and golden, the kind of Andalusian light that painted everything in hues of amber and promise. I found my Fiat towed to the inn's lot, its tire fixed courtesy of the local mechanic, and Audrey's quiet intervention, I later learned. She was there when I stepped out, leaning against her cruiser with a styrofoam cup of coffee in hand, her uniform traded for a simple button-down and jeans that hugged her frame like they were made for her. "Figured you'd need this," she said, handing me a second cup, steam curling up like a question. We sat on the inn's terrace overlooking the cliffs, the Mediterranean stretching out like a rumpled blue sheet, dotted with fishing boats bobbing in the swell. Conversation flowed easier in daylight, about her family in Seville, the abuela who taught her to make gazpacho blindfolded, my chaotic ad agency job in Manhattan, the one that chewed up my weekends and spat out heartbreak in the form of a cheating ex named Jordan. She was everything I thought I wanted, I admitted, staring into the foam of my coffee. Ambitious, beautiful. But she saw me as an accessory, not a partner. Audrey nodded, her dark eyes steady. "I get that. My last thing, it was with a colleague. Blew up when she transferred to Madrid. Said I was too rooted here, like loving this place was a flaw. There was a vulnerability in her voice, a crack in the armor, and I felt it mirror my own. We were both runners in our way, me from across the ocean, her from the what-ifs of a bigger life. By afternoon, she'd convinced me to ditch my itinerary for a drive along the coast. We blasted reggaeton from her car stereo, windows down, salt wind whipping our hair as we stopped at hidden coves where the water was so clear it hurt to look at. She taught me to skip stones across the waves, her laughter ringing out when mine plunked straight to the bottom. Patience, Brooklyn, she teased, her hand lingering on my shoulder to adjust my stance, warm and sure. In that touch, something stirred, a flutter low in my belly, electric and terrifying. We ended up at a tapas bar in a white village clinging to the hillside, the air thick with the scent of frying churros and blooming jasmine. Over plates of patatas bravas and albondigas, stories spilled out like wine from an overturned glass. She confessed her dream of opening a cafe overlooking the sea, serving her abuela's recipes to tourists who'd never know the love baked into them. I told her about the novel I'd abandoned in a drawer back home, words too raw to finish. Write it here, she urged, her foot brushing mine under the table, accidental on purpose. Spain has a way of finishing what you start. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in strokes of crimson and violet, we walked the narrow cobblestone streets, her arm linking through mine like it belonged there. The betrayal hadn't hit yet, the one that would come later, sharp as a switchblade, but in that moment, with her head tilting toward mine under the lantern light, I felt the pull of possibility. For the first time since landing in Malaga, I wasn't just surviving. I was alive. Days blurred into a rhythm that felt stolen from someone else's life. Mornings began with Audrey picking me up at the inn, her cruiser swapped for a battered Vespa that we rode tandem, my arms wrapped around her waist as we zipped through valleys dotted with cork oaks. She showed me the real Spain, not the postcard version, but the one with salt-crusted fishermen mending nets at dawn and old women in black shawls trading gossip at the market. This is home, she'd say, squeezing my knee as we shared empanadas from a street vendor, her touch lingering longer each time. Nights were ours alone. We'd hike to secluded beaches after her shift, spreading a blanket under stars so bright they mocked the city lights I'd left behind. One evening, as bioluminescent waves glowed at our feet like liquid fireflies, she turned to me, her face illuminated in ethereal blue. Brooklyn, what are you so afraid of? The question hung between us, heavy as the tide. I swallowed, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Losing myself again. Like with Jordan. She made me feel small, like my dreams were just noise. Tears pricked my eyes, unbidden, and Audrey reached out, her thumb brushing my cheek with a tenderness that undid me. You're not noise, she whispered, her forehead resting against mine. You're the bridge, the one that connects everything. Our lips met then, soft and tentative, tasting of sea salt and unspoken promises. It was a kiss that rewrote the map of my heart, pulling me deeper into her world. But shadows crept in, subtle at first. Whispers from the locals when we walked hand in hand through the village square, eyes narrowing behind shuttered windows, murmurs in Spanish too quick to parse. Audrey brushed them off with a laugh, but I saw the tension in her shoulders, the way she scanned the crowd like a hawk. Small town, she'd say. They'll get used to it. Then came the calls. Late one night, as we tangled in the sheets of my in-room, chased explorations of hands and whispers, nothing more than the poetry of rediscovery, her phone buzzed incessantly on the nightstand. She silenced it with a curse, but not before I glimpsed the name, Elena. Work, she muttered, rolling away, but the lie hung in the air like smoke. The next day, she was distant during our drive to Ronda, the famous bridge city carved into the cliffs. We wandered the gorge's edge, wind howling through the stone, but her smiles felt forced, her hands slipping from mine when a group of off-duty officers passed by. Audrey, what's going on? I pressed as we sat on a bench overlooking the Guadalquivir River, its waters churning far below. She sighed, rubbing her temples. It's nothing. Just pressure from the station. They're old school here. Don't love the optics of me. Us. Her eyes pleaded for understanding, and I nodded, swallowing the doubt rising like bile. But that night, alone with my journal, I sketched the questions I couldn't voice. Who was Elena? And why did Audrey's love feel like it came with invisible chains? Weeks passed in a haze of stolen moments, picnics in almond orchards heavy with spring blossoms, midnight swims where her laughter echoed off the rocks. I extended my stay, then again, the novel's pages filling with scenes inspired by her, a woman guarding her heart like a lighthouse against the storm. Love bloomed fierce and fragile, the kind that makes you believe in second chances. Yet the cracks widened. Elena called again during a dinner at Audrey's tiny apartment in town, a sunlit space cluttered with cookbooks and framed photos of Seville fiestas. The name flashed, and Audrey's face paled. She stepped onto the balcony, voice low and urgent, fragments carrying on the breeze. I can't, Elena. It's over. Please, don't come here. When she returned, her eyes were red-rimmed. She admitted finally, pouring us both wine with unsteady hands. We were together for 2 years. She moved to Madrid for a promotion, but now she's back. Wants to try again. The confession landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading through me. Audrey, if you still love her, I started, but she cut me off, grasping my hands across the table. No. It's you, Brooklyn. You woke something in me I thought was dead. Her kiss was desperate then, a plea wrapped in passion, and I let it pull me under, ignoring the tremor in her voice. But doubt festered. The next day, I borrowed her Vespa to explore alone, needing space to breathe. On the way back, I detoured through town, past the station where her cruiser sat parked. And there, in the cafe across the street, I saw them, Audrey and Elena, heads bent close over coffees, Elena's hand on Audrey's arm, intimate and familiar. Laughter bubbled from them, the kind I thought was ours alone. My heart shattered on that sun-drenched sidewalk, pieces scattering like the petals from a crushed bougainvillea. Betrayal wasn't a thunderclap, it was this quiet theft, stealing the color from everything we'd built. I confronted her that evening at the beach, the sun a bloody smear on the horizon. How could you? The words tore from me, raw and ragged, as waves crashed in accusation. Audrey's face crumpled, tears carving tracks through the sand on her cheeks. It wasn't what you think. She showed up unannounced, begging for closure. I told her no, Brooklyn, swear it. But her eyes darted, evasion cloaked as honesty, and I saw the truth, she hadn't cut the cord clean. Elena was the anchor, pulling her back to safe waters, while I was the wild current threatening to sweep her away. We argued until the stars wheeled overhead, voices rising and falling like the tide, promises broken, fears laid bare. I'm scared, she admitted at last, voice breaking. Of what loving you means here. The judgment, the risks. Elena. She's easy. Familiar. But you're everything. The climax hit 2 nights later, under a moon bloated and indifferent. Elena didn't leave, she lingered, her presence a specter haunting our every glance. Whispers turned to outright hostility, notes slipped under my inn door, crude drawings of 2 women entwined with slurs scrawled in red ink. Go home, Yankee, one read, and I crumpled it, fury boiling over. Audrey found me packing, rain lashing the windows like judgment. Don't, she begged, dropping to her knees amid the scattered clothes. I ended it with her today. For real. Stay. Fight with me. But the damage was done. Love shouldn't feel like war, I whispered, zipping my bag with hands that shook. The betrayal wasn't just hers, it was the town's, the world's, reminding me I was an outsider in every sense, American heart and Spanish soil, loving a woman who couldn't fully love back. She drove me to the airport at dawn, the road silent save for our ragged breaths. At the terminal, under fluorescent lights that buzzed like regrets, we clung to each other one last time. Write the ending we deserve, she murmured against my hair, her uniform crisp as armor she'd never shed. I boarded the plane with a heart full of salt and stories, the novel completed in fragments scrawled on napkins during the flight home. Back in Brooklyn, amid the clamor of subways and skyscrapers, I published it, a tale of midnight rescues and fractured promises, dedicated simply to Audrey, who showed me the bridge between fear and flight. Months later, a package arrived, a jar of gazpacho mix, a pressed olive leaf, and a letter. I opened the cafe. It's called Puente del March. Come back when you're ready. Or don't. Just know you changed the tide. No please, just truth, human, imperfect, enduring. I didn't go back, not yet. But on quiet nights, with the city humming below my window, I trace the tattoo on my arm and smile. Love isn't always a happy ending, sometimes it's the courage to begin again, bridges rebuilt one careful span at a time.